Turn now. Okay, we are recording. So Dipti, if you'd like to do the pre-meeting introduction.
Yeah. Great. Well, great. Welcome everyone to our September 16th meeting for the Community Relations Forum. There is an oral declaration that I need to read. I will read it. The Community Relations Forum of the Village of Glencoe, pursuant to recently adopted amendments to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, included in Public Act 101-0640, public bodies may, in certain circumstances, hold entirely virtual public meetings without a quorum physically present in any one location. On March 19, 2020, President Levine issued a declaration of emergency pursuant to the authority granted by the Village Code, the Illinois Municipal Code, and the Illinois Emergency Management Agency Act to address the health threat posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. On May 29, 2020, Governor Pritzker issued a disaster proclamation that declared in-person attendance at public meetings of more than 10 people at the regular public meeting location to be infeasible in accordance with the Open Meetings Act as amended by Public Act 101-0640. In accordance with the governor's disaster proclamation and the village president's declaration of emergency, I, as chair of the Community Relations Forum, hereby determine that in-person meetings of the Community Relations Forum are not practical or prudent at this time and until further notice. There, now I can breathe. Okay, shall we call the meeting to order and have a roll call?
Sure. So I will call the roll and we will do that. Chairperson Dipti Clark.
Here.
Member Marty Alisco. Member Margot Flanagan.
Here.
Reverend Dwayne Gary. Anise Moses, who is an appointee to the forum.
I'm here.
She's here. Amy Mizell.
Oh.
Amy, do you want to unmute and just mention you're here?
First, yeah, sorry, I'm here.
That's okay. It's one of these formalities that's so strange to do this in a Zoom meeting. Member Gary Rubin.
Here.
Appointee Hillary Scott.
Here.
Member Maureen Valvasori.
Here.
And Member Bob Young.
Here.
We have a quorum, and for the record, I am here at Village Hall, maintaining our physical presence at the building as required.
Okay. Great, thank you, Sharon. And now I would like to consider the approval of our, when was our last meeting?
August 19th.
Sorry, when was that?
19th.
August 19th meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move. Second.
Great. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Get back to my list. Chairperson Dipti Clark.
Yes.
Member Margot Flanagan.
Yes.
Member Amy Mizell.
Yes.
Member Gary Rubin.
Yes.
Member Maureen Valvasori.
Yes.
And Member Bob Young.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Great. The next thing I want to talk about is the public comments on topics that are not listed on the agenda. So this is the time when a member of the public may comment on something that is not on the agenda. I will ask Sharon to read any public comments that were submitted prior to the meeting. And after that, I will ask if any members of the public would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda. If you want to make a comment about something that is listed on the agenda, hold it until, hold your comment until that later time. If a member of the public would like to make a comment now on something that is not on the agenda, please press the raise hand button on your computer, or bless you, or *9 if you are joining by phone. The village's public comment rules limit comments to 3 minutes. Sharon?
I don't see any hands raised, and I'm having just a bit of difficulty logging in to check if there are any comments submitted by email. So if you want to move on to the next item, and we could perhaps defer confirming if there were any public comments by email to the end of the meeting.
Okay, that sounds great. We can do that. So the first thing I want to talk about today, before we get into our agenda items, is I want to welcome 3 new members to the forum, and this is their first meeting. 2 are appointees, and they will be appointed tomorrow in our board meeting, and one who has already been appointed, Amy Meisel, has already been appointed. Welcome. And Anise and Hillary, welcome in advance, and thank you for coming to our meeting. Since this is like a brand new group for you, Sharon and I talked about this earlier. We did this in our first meeting where we introduced ourselves and just kind of had a little bit to say about each one of us. And I feel like if we go through that exercise and take the time to go through that a little bit right now, you, first of all, being new, will feel comfortable, or in hopes that you will feel comfortable, and might get to know a little bit more about each of the forum members as well. So just if you would, you know, just introduce yourselves, how long you've lived in Glencoe, what made you join the forum, and what are some of the things that you think your ideas that you think may make an impact, or our forum can make an impact towards changing our community. So why don't we start with Amy, since Amy, you are a newly appointed member.
Great. So nice to meet everybody. I've had, you can hear me, correct? Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've attended a few of the last few months discussions with the chalking and so forth. So I had a little bit of a chance to get to see how the meetings go, but obviously it's a totally new forum for me to be part of. I have been living in Glencoe for over 50 years. I was born and raised here, then moved out of state for a while, then moved downtown for a while, and then my parents actually passed away, and believe it or not, we bought the family house. So I am now living and had raised my kids in the house that I was watched being built when I was 10 years old. So I've got like very long roots, at least in this particular block that I'm in and so forth. And now our kids live in Deerfield. One of them lives and works in the Glencoe area with the village. And so we're just thrilled, obviously, to still be here. It's just very nostalgic for us, which is nice. Lots of great memories, obviously, for the village, and feel strongly about wanting it to be an inclusive and diverse it can be, and certainly inclusive of everybody, and the kind of welcoming that I just remember growing up. Now, of course, I was a child, but still, I remember a feeling about the village, and you could actually not even get in too much trouble, like uptown buying something or whatever, because everybody knew, they knew your parents, they knew what was going on. So it was kind of fun feeling about the village. My career spans 38 years as chief HR officer of large companies, mostly in the Chicago area, True Value Hardware Corporation, things like that. And so I've been in the space around inclusion and diversity for a long time, but of course this is obviously going to be very different. I mean, there'll be parts that I'll touch that'll feel like, oh yeah, that resonates a lot, and other ones I'm sure they'll be like, no, I mean, this is a residential, piece. So obviously I'm open to see how that's going to all work out, but hopefully the passion I've always had for that in my career will carry through to wanting to make this the right kind of place. I do not yet know how I can impact it other than bringing those pieces that I just mentioned together, hopefully good listening skills, and wanting us to be the best village we can in every way, and enjoy working with all of you in the process. So that's kind of my thing. So
great, thank you and welcome. And our 2 appointees, Hillary and Anise, whoever wants to go first, please If you could just give a brief introduction. Okay, well, one of you. All right, Anise, go first.
Okay. I was just trying not to, I was choking there for a second. So I'm better now. Although Amy may, best me on this, I was going to say that I thought that I had been the youngest person ever living in a house in Glencoe, because my husband and I both were living at home when we got married, and then we moved into the house that we're in. So that was 97. And I felt like a real baby here, but Amy's been here her whole life. So that's really amazing. I have 4 kids. I have a newly graduated senior in high school, and then I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old. No, that's a lie. Don't tell him I got his age wrong. A 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So I've been in the school system in Glencoe all this time with my kids. My background is in psychology, and I have my master's in counseling. And I'm sorry for the dogs in the background. And I worked for a while at Response Center, which used to be in Skokie, which was a teen center, which, I went into all the area high schools and talked with them about diversity, body image, healthy relationships, families, all different kinds of things, drugs, alcohol, consent. So I have been doing, I work with teenagers primarily, and try to help them advocate on behalf of themselves. And then also I've been involved with the Englewood community since my husband and I were dating, and doing a variety of things, including food distribution, community bridge building, garden work. They have a community garden that I was a part of. Also took a group of kids in conjunction with the family volunteers and teachers and social workers in Englewood to Washington, D.C. a bunch of years ago. And I also am involved with Urban Prep West, which is an all-boys high school in the city. And I run a peace room for them, trying to give them a space for, thought and process, and just a place for them to be thoughtful about their own well-being and considering their psychology behind some of the things that they might be going through in their lives. And then sometimes we're just playing cards and Othello and hanging out and eating cookies. All of those things are going to shift and change now that the school year is starting, with COVID at the forefront. And I'm trying to think what else. I don't know. I mean, a lot of other things, but that would take too much time. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's great. Well, welcome. We're excited. Hillary, would you like to introduce yourself?
All right. This is exciting because you guys have both been in Glencoe a long time. And I've only been in Glencoe since 2012, and meaningfully, because my husband and I similarly bought the house that I grew up in and are raising my children, our children, in the house that I grew up in. So that's just wild that we're all sort of been in this space for so long and don't know one another. Maybe that's amongst the reasons I kind of feel like this is an important exercise. I think there's a lot of folks in Glencoe who, as much as I think I know all the best people, I meet new best people every day. So I think we're so fortunate to live here. I spend time in other communities, and I often feel like, well, that's nice for them, but like nobody has it as good as we have it. And so it impacts me when I hear that that's not true for everyone here, in different ways and for different reasons. So in that way, this work feels really important to me. Similar to Anise, I would not hazard ideas or suggestions after only being involved now for like 2 weeks. But I hope to listen and learn. And I bring some experience to bear. I can't wait to, Anise and I are going to have coffee after this and see all the different places that we overlap. I'm trained as a social worker. My master's is in social work. I'm trained as a clinician, although I haven't spent a lot of time operating as a clinician. I'm more in the social administration space. I've done a lot of fundraising as much as I've tried to escape it over the years. And now I teach kind of nonprofit stuff in the Lake Forest College. So to college students, which has been really fun and exciting for me over the course of the last 2 years. And so a lot of what we teach, it's in the business program, but because I kind of fall under the umbrella of entrepreneurship, we have a curriculum that's based in resilience, empathy, vulnerability, having difficult conversations, active listening. So I think that these are things that I try to practice my best every day, and certainly try to model that for my students and teach them. So I hold these values really dear, and I think what you are doing and what we will be doing is really important. So 2 kids, I don't know how old they are either, actually. They're whatever, they're middle school students. It's like, it's all just looks like but they're actually somewhat delightful as middle school boys go. 7th and 8th grade, one at Central School, one at North Shore Country Day, mostly so that they don't fight. And I'm just so grateful to be here. So my husband is Sean. You'll see him pop in and out. He's the cyclist, so don't say anything mean about how they crowd up on Green Bay Road. I get it. I'm aware. They drive me crazy too, but I'm married to one. So yeah, that's us.
Well, that's great. Welcome. We're excited. Maureen, would you like to go next?
Hi. Okay. Well, I think I may have everyone beat. We'll see. My kids are 4th generation Glencoe. I was raised in the house that my dad bought from my grandfather. So we've been in the village. I've been in the village since I was 5 years old. I'm not telling you how old I am, so guess. My husband and I have 3 grown sons, a beautiful daughter-in-law. I am the director of pastoral care at Divine Mercy in Winnetka, and I have been a member of the forum. I think this is starting my 4th year. So does that sound right, Sharon? I think this is year 4. So it's a wonderful group. I'm so happy to have our new members, and full disclosure, Anise is my neighbor, and we pass each other on the street often. And because there'll be 2 of us, we can't talk about forum stuff, but beyond 2 is a no-no, and we're going to learn all about that, right? So anyway, so good to be with all of you, and thank you so much to our new members.
Gary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Gary Rubin. I have lived in the village for 28 years or so. I should say we have lived in the village for 28 years or so, my wife and now 2 grown children. And with COVID-19, one of them is back. Decided it's more fun to live with us than in her apartment here in the city. I'm a lawyer by profession, but please don't hold that against me. I'm a transactional lawyer, which means I have to listen and try to bring people together that have very disparate views. And that's what I try to do. I'm a member of our board of trustees. Before that, I was a school board member for 8 years. You can blame Bob Young for that if you have any views about it, because he's the one that actually first got me interested in the topic. And you may see me walking around town with a very large blonde dog. For those of you that have been here for a while, I used to have very, very large gray shaggy dogs. And so we've downsized slightly, but it's still a large dog. So that you might not know me, but you might know the dogs. That's the only reason I throw that out there. And I'm looking forward to continue to work with all the members, and especially looking forward to working with our newest 3 members very much.
Great. Bob?
My name is Bob Young. We've lived in Glencoe for 38 years. We have 2 grown children. For about 36 of those 38 years, I've been elected to or appointed to a caucus, the Glencoe School Caucus, the New Trier, the Village Caucus, the School Board Caucus, and now this fine group. I was a VISTA volunteer during the mid-60s. VISTA was the domestic counterpart of the Peace Corps. I came back, worked with a couple of social service agencies in Chicago, and then went into fundraising, primarily with medical institutions, worked with Rush, Northwestern, Children's, also did some arts work. I worked with the Lyric Opera of Chicago, the English National Opera in London, and if you like modern dance, as I do, Polobolus Dance Theater. And I'm delighted to continue to serve the community in this group. Thank you. And welcome to the new members.
I did not know the dance part.
Yeah, no, Polobolus, I think they're still going. I mean, they were on the verge of their 50th anniversary, a long run, and terrific, just terrific.
We have to look it up. Thank you. Margot?
Hi, everybody. Welcome, Amy and Hillary and Anise. I'm glad that you're joining us. So yeah, I'm Margot, and I have been on the forum for around 12 years. It used to be the it used to be the Human Relations Forum. And some of you that have been in Glencoe for a while may remember our heart-to-heart meetings that we used to have, and Glencoe's Got Talent, and some of the other activities that we had an art shop on Vernon at one point as well. I have a 20-year-old daughter who's a junior at the University of Denver, and I've been in Glencoe for 22 years. I was raised just down the street in Winnetka. But my father was raised in Glencoe, so I was glad to come here. I've worn a couple different hats in the village. I think I'm still the court liaison for the police department, but we haven't been doing a lot live in court lately. I help to facilitate the Glencoe Community Holiday Drive with Officer Katie Sweeney and Colleen Harlow. I was on Glencoe PTO. I volunteer at the North Shore Exchange shop. And I'm an active member of the Volunteer Center of Northeast Metropolitan Chicagoland area, which is a name that I voted against. It's too long. But we are active in volunteerism and promoting volunteerism in our community. And I've got some ideas of how we can work together, particularly on our Martin Luther King Day event, which will be virtual this year. And I'm just really excited that you guys are all here to help us. Thanks.
Thank you, Margot. Sharon, would you like to introduce yourself? Or
I can if you'd like me to. Sure.
Yes, of course.
Sharon Tanner. I've had the opportunity to meet everyone. I'm the assistant village manager here at the village and your humble staff liaison to the Community Relations Forum. So as the staff liaison, I don't vote, but I don't count toward a quorum either. But I'm here as a resource to you. I help facilitate some of the meeting preparations, act as a liaison to connecting the forum with village departments or questions or anything else, and try to help support the dialogue that the forum has and hopefully not get in the way. I've been with the village for about 5.5 years almost, which I feel like I blinked and it's gone by. Prior to that, I worked in municipal government in 2 other communities. I started my career in the village of Hoffman Estates and then spent about 7.5 years right down the road at the village of Glenview. My professional training is in public administration, which is essentially the kind of the public management or the management side of public entities. So it's a lot of fun. My work here at the village, certainly I'm your staff liaison. I oversee our human resources function in the village, work very closely with our IT staff, work with our business community, and as a member of the village manager's office, support the village manager in his oversight of the day-to-day operations of the village. So it's a lot of fun, and it's no 2 days are exactly alike, which is part of what makes it a lot of fun. So delighted to be here with the group as always.
Thank you. Everyone's very humble on this group. And Sharon, you really are humble. She's like the arms, legs, spine, brain, everything for us. So, you know, she's like our first go-to person for everyone, and we are all very comfortable. So actually, I'm very grateful to you, Sharon, that you make us comfortable where we can come to you for help. So really appreciate everything that you do for us. You're most of the time, you're kind of in the background and sideline, but you know, it's like, everyone knows that you're the main backbone for us. So I appreciate that. My name is Dipti Clark, and I may be the newest person here in Glencoe. We've only been here 2 years, just a little bit over 2. In August, it was 2 years. I have a very colorful background. However, those 2 years, I feel like I've been here for a very long time. I have a colorful background. My husband is not Indian. I am Indian. I was raised in India, born there. I met my husband in India. He is from Connecticut, but he used to come there for work, and I was in the same company. I was one of those first 30 employees. He had come to set it up, and we met. I mean, it was just, I knew he worked for the company. And then 2 years later, when I came here to work, he went out of his way to help me in every way you can imagine. I was like, oh, really? Why are you driving me to the Social Security office? And why are we opening a bank account? Why are you helping me? And he co-signed on my first car. I mean, because, you know, you come here with no credit. I was a complete immigrant. And so he showed me all of New York, because I used to live in New Jersey, and every weekend he used to come from Connecticut and showed me I've seen New York because of him. We have 3 children. His work has taken us many places. We had 2 expat assignments in India, in a totally different part. And if you have ever read about India or been to India, you would know that it is it's like Europe. Every state you go to from another state is like going to a new country. The language is different, the food is different, people look different, people have different rituals for weddings. I mean, you could be the same religion, but believe me, I have attended some weddings and I'm like, huh? You know, and it's just, I mean, everything is different when you go from one state to another state. So for me, going to live there, to have my own place, because I left from my parents' place, so it was very hard. I had the hardest time than anybody else in my family, but it was an experience that I think everyone cherishes. Our kids went to an international school. We had 27 different nationalities. We learned a lot of like real cultural experiences from people, and I think our kids, I don't think we'll always live in one place. I think they would want to move around and live other places because of the experiences. Coming to Glencoe was just, I don't know why we moved to Glencoe, quite honestly. But I mean, we used to live in Northbrook. All our kids were born there, but we haven't lived there for a long time, obviously. My mother-in-law was supposed to move in with us from Connecticut. So we had very specific requirements for a house with a ground floor suite. And, you know, the house we fell in love with happened to be here. And then we fell in love with the town. It's so funny. It was an arranged marriage with Glencoe. And someone who's Indian completely understands that. Not that I've been arranged, but so I have to say, it's been a really great community for us. And in my previous life, I mean, I'm an IT professional by nature. I work for Deloitte, but in my previous life, I have had the need to leave my profession for the sake of my family, for my husband, because of wherever we moved. And that has taught me to do many things, especially in India. We raised, we just had opportunities to make a difference in every way. You just look left, right, wherever, and we had the opportunity to pick it up and make a difference. And having an executive presence with my husband's position, and then having that circle, it helped to, as we talk about the allyship and using the privilege to as a positive way, we were able to use that with the other people we knew to build that. And so I want to say, when I came to Glencoe, I wanted to make a difference in general, let people understand what it's like to live other places, what it's like to be from somewhere else, and how everything doesn't have to be the way they think it should be, because it's so different everywhere else. And respect one another for who you are, and you know, teach each other who you are. Have that opportunity to tell each other, you know, more than just, hey, how are you doing? It's like, you know, tell them 2 more things about you. And if you tell 2 people 2 more things about you, then guess how many people would know more. As a forum, I want to say we are a really great group of leaders. I consider every single one of us as a leader. And it's hard work, you know, what we do here. It's not an easy vote to put a bench in the park or put a street sign up. This is a very sensitive work. It's playing with people's emotions. Most people do not know what somebody else has experienced, what others go through. So it is really hard work. But having said that, leaders figure out hard work. So we're all leaders, and we're all figuring out the hard work. We're all stepping it up to, you know, put some concrete plans in place and move forward. It is very important that we, as our representatives for a community, which is how I see us, we are representing Glencoe, that we take the lead. And we're not afraid, and just you know, call a spade a spade. Isn't that like a term? I think it is. Yeah. So you know, it makes a lot of difference when somebody stands up for stuff like that. We stand up for each other. We have great conversations. Sadly, it has to be one-on-one, but we do. And from a forum perspective, we are figuring out our next steps. So that's kind of like our lead into our agenda items, because there are, you know, a couple of things we had talked about in our meeting last time. And I wanted to bring those items back to the table. I think it would be great if we could have some consensus on it. I mean, we've never voted really on things on this forum, because I don't know, we just like look for consensus. So if we see nods, that's a good sign, right? The first thing that we had talked about last time is we wanted to put together a formal process to go to our organizations in Glencoe that, you know, we've identified. We have a list. Sharon has shared it, and Sharon, you know, maybe with the new members, we could again share it after the meeting. We've identified some liaisons who from the forum have expressed interest to be a liaison. So for example, if a niece has been, you know, on the school board and would like to, you know, liaise for our District 35, then, you know, that's great. I mean, that's just an example I'm giving. But if you're interested, I would say when Sharon sends that list, look through it, whatever interests you, multiple is fine with multiple people, you know, so that we can share our responsibilities. And then, you know, Margot had a really great point where, you know, I mean, these are examples I'm giving you as to how we have leaders in our forum to move forward. Like, she was like, okay, well, what are we going to talk to them about? What's the formal process? Are we going to them with a questionnaire? And so last meeting, we decided that we were all going to send Sharon a list of questions that we think we should have on on that questionnaire. Not every question may apply to that organization. However, it would be up to the forum member who's liaising with them to figure out which question applies and which ones they want to ask, and then, you know, get that dialogue moving. It's very important. I mean, we've always talked about dialogue and keeping the forum as a safe place, people to come and talk to us, getting that communication going, because we are active listeners and we want to listen to people. And sometimes it takes a question to ask them, to listen to them. So, you know, we want to help our forum members with that. So the list that Sharon shared before our meeting in email is what we have so far. It's a pretty good list. It talks about, you know, majority of the questions around inclusiveness, of what the community organizations, whether it's with their members or their employees, are doing, what kind of policies they have in place, and what kind of processes they put in place. If should there be a complaint, should there be, you know, a promotion, and you know, and stuff like that. So we probably won't go through the list here. However, I'm hoping everyone has read the list ahead of time before coming to the meeting. Can I just get like a nod if you have? Well, that's great. I would say if you haven't looked at the list, give it a shot. If there's something that's completely missing from it, please send it to Sharon so she can add to it. But what we have so far, to me, looks pretty good. I mean, you know, let's just formalize it, finalize it.
Dipti, if I may, adding to your introduction for the benefit of the group, kind of backing up even a step further, the intent of reaching out to some of the community organizations is multifold. First, I don't even know if that's a word. I might have just made it up. Forgive me if I did. But one goal is to develop a relationship so that if there are opportunities for partnership, we can understand that. A second is to engage in dialogue. Part of the forum's purpose is to hear feedback from the community. And so the organizations in the community may be uniquely situated to share feedback from their vantage point as the forum is working to support dialogue in the community around racism and social equity and community building. And then another purpose too is to develop a relationship that can be ongoing, so that if one organization may be a resource to another, that we've got a nice bridge there between them. So don't mean to interrupt the dialogue, but I just wanted to add that as a piece of additional context.
Thank you, because I completely took it for granted everybody knew what I was rambling on about. But yes, that is really good context. So are we okay with the list of questions? Again, it doesn't have to apply to every single organization, but if we're okay with it, then we can talk about how we move forward and what are some of the ideas we have in how we can take it forward to when we meet with the organizations. So are we good with the list? Yes? No? No?
The list you're talking about, the list of questions, is that right?
Right.
Right. I have just a question, because I'm not. What is an NGO?
Oh, it's a non-government organization.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Is that not?
No, that's
fine. Is that not a normal term around here?
Familiar. Sounds familiar. Okay. And then the other question I had. Well, but we don't want to hash out the line by line of this. I can maybe talk to Sharon in person. Just a question I have about question number 5. I'm not sure I understand.
Did you want to read it to us, Margot, so then we know what it is?
Yeah, I'll feel silly though, because it'll probably make sense to me when I read it out loud. I read it in my head the first time. As an organization, what actions and tools do you provide your members, employees to overcome denial of racial injustice. It's like an addiction to realize you have racist ideas. So people choose to live in denial just as substance addiction. How do you empower your members, employees to become uncomfortable so that they can work towards a transformation? I mean, I guess I understand it. I could probably work with it.
Okay, so in all fairness, I submitted that and I was just really riled up about Ingram Kendi's book, and it's called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And I want to say this is what he has spoken about, and substance abuse and how you can be in complete denial that you're addicted. And he equated racism or someone who calls themselves I'm not a racist to that because they're living in denial. So that's probably all the excitement that went in there. And I do recommend that book to everyone because it is phenomenal.
That's for sure. Okay.
So
I read that book. I see where you're coming from.
And actually that same day we had a webinar at work where they had invited him to speak, and where we had, you know, a couple of our leaders asking him specific questions, and he had also said the same thing. So I'm thinking, this is fantastic. We never even thought about this. And, you know, it just literally, I just filled it out. So we could certainly word it better. It doesn't have to be that way. It is just, these questions are for the benefit of our forum members. And when we go to organizations to talk to them about it, it could certainly be whatever fits in. Amy, did you have something to add?
I was just going to say, I think it's the concepts, an interesting one. I think, to Marco's point, I think people would be very confused the way it's written now. I'm not sure, you know, taken in isolation, if we just sent it to somebody, there might be a way just to wordsmith it a little bit so the core is there without necessarily getting on the soapbox around the addiction piece, because the point is really the underlying point is there, right? Even more, because somebody wouldn't know what to do with it, I'm afraid. And then I'd hate for them to kind of miss the point, right, of the thing. So that's just my thought.
So that actually brings me to that next question is, what do we want to do with this questionnaire? How do we want to handle going forward with the organizations? Do we want to send it to them in an email, or do we want to contact them and talk to them and ask them, sort of like an interview process, you know?
Well, my conversation with New Trier Township, and the woman that I spoke to is someone I've worked with on other events and projects, suggested that I send her the questions, because when I was sort of outlining the information we were looking for, she said it may pertain to different people in the office that have different positions. So she thought it would be best if I sent it to her, and then she was able to reach out to the right person at New Trier Township, depending on what the question was. So in other words, some of these questions are directed towards perhaps a person who's in charge of HR, or, you know, someone like a director of an organization, where other questions may be better suited for the board president or a board member that is on a committee that deals with it. And that's just specific to New Trier Township. But my plan would be to send her an email with the questions and ask if they could get back to us, or if I could have whoever's supposed to answer which questions, their contact information to talk to them.
I'm fine with it if we just talk to the organizations and see how they feel fit. So if they wanted an email and they want to go and talk to the other areas and come back, that's fine. If they would rather have a phone conversation about it, that's great. You know, I think flexibility is key. We don't want to put somebody, like, you know, on the spot with these, obviously. And our goal is to understand what organizations are doing, because we as a forum, being part of a community that, you know, we have 4 other attendees other than just our forum members, are struggling to reach out to our community, to have their engagement in this and come to our meetings. And so if the organizations who have so many people that they're in contact with, either as members or employees, can help, then that's great. I mean, that would be really good for our forum to take forward. So that is also one of our goals, you know. So I think flexibility is key. I wouldn't want to put anything in stone, but I mean, I just want to know the group's views.
Are we able to, I didn't know that this was like an editable, I don't know if I made up that word, copy. And if it is, then should we just sort of look at it with a critical eye and go through it and just forward suggestions like kind of into a bucket and then we can talk about it? Or how do you guys normally do things like this?
Okay, so this is the first time we're actually doing this as a group with me here, so I don't know how it has been done in the past. However, if a couple of people want to volunteer to take a critical eye and make it a nice, formal, understandable document, then I'm okay with it.
So I think, I think it needs an introduction, or, you know, I don't think it's, as it is, it's not, to me, ready to use. I think it, and I like the idea that maybe in some smaller organizations, you might talk somebody through it. And then like Margot's point with, you know, the high school, my goodness, you know, I could see how they'd absolutely have different groups that would use it. But maybe the easiest way is to create just a Google Doc so that people can, you know, jump in, make their edits, right? And everybody can see it instead of somebody having to do some merge somewhere. And then we kind of just refine it so that it's usable. And then with that list, kind of have a, so what's the, so how do we want to proceed? You know, are people going to, again, take that working list that Sharon's going to share, and 4 people will take this and 2 this, whatever, however we fan out and use it. But I think the concept's great. I just, seeing it for the first time, probably could see that it just needs a little, more, so it could be a standalone.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, Amy, that's an excellent point. And it jogs my memory a bit that we put together a bit of an introductory email template or letter that members could use in their outreach to the organization. And to your point, there may be a different level of formality, or maybe you've got someone that you're already familiar with that's a good point of contact. And so that may not be necessary. I'll recirculate that as well. And I'm happy to receive any feedback about the questions and collate them and okay, make any adjustments. A suggestion I wanted to offer the group is, to the extent that we want to get feedback from organizations about kind of what they see from their perspective in the community, we may want to think through some questions around that. Some of the questions as written, I think, help get at some of the other aspects of what we're hoping to learn, whether it's about the organization, the work that they do, how they go about doing the work. Some of them strike me as kind of more organizational structure questions, or kind of, I got my HR director hat on, some things that kind of touch in human resources. But to the extent that the group would like to get feedback from organizations about what do things look like from your vantage point? What do you see as areas of opportunity for the community for growth in dialogue about racism and social equity and community building? What positive things do you see happening? Where do you see opportunities for building upon the good things that are happening? So I would just offer that as a suggestion for the group.
Yeah, I like that very much.
Well, that's part of that is my apparently persistence that we reach beyond the borders of Glencoe. I had a conversation with a member of the Winnetka Rotary, and they have a newly formed racial justice committee. And I asked what they've been doing. You know, how are they addressing this issue? And I got a very lengthy email describing all the people they've talked to and some of their plans going forward. I imagine, you know, I know a few of the trustees at the Village of Winnetka. You know, again, I think Evanston has been very proactive in this. Wilmette, I think, you know, solving the problem within our 3.5 miles would be lovely, but not very useful to the larger problem. And so I would recommend, if I could, that we reach out to other communities and what they're doing in addition to our own organizations within Glencoe.
Margot, that's a great point, kind of the idea of a regional look at things. If I may, I would suggest that we start with some of the civic organizations or other organizations rather than reaching out to other government entities. To the extent that we may ultimately want to do that, to have a more regional dialogue, that's something that we may want to talk through how to approach another community or another governmental entity, for example, so that we're engaging the appropriate individuals there and are able to have some context setting in the conversation. So I would suggest start with maybe the volunteer organizations, the civic groups, or others that are of similar focus.
Actually, I had a point to discuss with our group today along those lines. We have a great place we can create for and invite formally make this a formal process and invite 2 guests to come and speak during our forum meetings, and they could be guests from anywhere. They could talk about recent events they've held that they were successful in. They could talk about their experiences. They could, it would be formally done where we would have a plan and a calendar to decide where each forum member could, you know, suggest people, names. We've already kind of done that, you know, like last meeting, Bob invited our, you know, young, I was going to say teenagers, but I don't think they are, young chalkers. And, you know, they came, they shared their experience. We learned something really phenomenal about their experience, and we were able to take action. You know, it was, I think, really, Bob, I mean, thank you for that. That was really well done. I mean, you were in touch with them. You invited them to our forum meeting. They came, they spoke very well. They had very clear ideas. They wanted some action on how they were treated, you know, harassed even. And I think that, you know, we as a forum, thanks to Gary, was able to take it forward to the board, had suggestions, recommendations, and then our president, Larry Levine, put in a very strong statement. And, you know, that to me is really taking that to the next step, and having them come and share that on our forum, I think drove it all. Because unless they did, and this was a positive experience. And I think, you know, for example, Scott Himmel, who is going to have a panel discussion and is going to have a few members, and he's going to, you know, moderate it with questions and things like that. He would be a really good resource. We could invite him and see how, either before or after his event, and see what his experience was like. How did it turn out? I mean, what was great about it? What wasn't? I mean, these are things I really think will be very helpful to our forum and our goal. So that, yeah, sure, Amy.
So at the end, just hopping forward to, so we get, let's just say we get the questions the way we like them and we get this working list. At the end of the line here, getting this input, the objective is then what, to maybe propose a handful of things that we would take forward from the forum to the village to say, here are things we would like to suggest being done, or are they things that we would actually just proceed to do as a standalone entity, you know, as we got some of that input? Say there were, you know, 4 great ideas, you know, that came out of the whole thing. They all just making it up.
A couple of things that I see, and then others can add. We have a great opportunity to work with these organizations to, I think, even give them ideas. There's a lot of information that we could share and give ideas just through those questions is going to get them thinking. Second, if they want to host an event of some sort, or a panel discussion, a book club, whatever it is that is going to help with the cause, they're welcome to do that. We as a forum are here to, I spread the word, but we, to the best of our abilities in our community, but also, you know, and have them engage then on what they've done, how they've done, right? So that is one key thing also with the organizations. Anybody else wants to add?
I got the impression that the Glencoe Clergy Association wanted to partner with us, Dipti, on their panel discussion. Did you get that impression?
I got that impression, but we haven't. I think Reverend Gary has been invited to the panel, so I guess we could, because he's part of the Clergy Association as well. So I mean, he could be representing both. However, I don't believe anybody else from the forum has been asked to be a part of the panel.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping Scott would be here tonight to kind of explain. He had emailed Dipti and I about this panel going forward, and I wish he had come to give us a little more information. But I know in previous meetings, like Family Services, Writers Theater, District 35, Catherine Wang, all have stated that they are ready and willing to work with us. I think it's just finding out what that's going to look like. And I already had a conversation with him at the library, and you know, they really have taken seriously this welcoming and inclusive pledge. They're doing wonderful things at the library, and they too would be very excited to work with us. So I think it's trying to figure out what that looks like. I don't know if we can even bring all those organizations together around one event, one effort, but there does seem to be a lot of interest and excitement to do something. What that is, I'm not sure.
And you know, I mean, we don't even have to be directly involved in their events. Like when I spoke to Catherine Wang, she told me everything that they're doing for Glencoe schools and the programs they're putting in place and the training. And I mean, you know, for us to know that this is the kind of action they are taking from the school's perspective, that's great, because that is new, that's different. You know, we could be the model for New Trier, you know, say, hey, you know, we have all these programs we put in place in Glencoe and it's working. I mean, that would be our goal as well. But so while we are not as a forum involved in their activities for what they're doing for their organization, the fact that they have communicated that to us and they're telling us they're doing this, I think is partnering in their own way.
So there's a role as catalyst, you're saying, it is essentially.
I think part of the reason there's the discussion is of the nature that it is because we, as sort of a newly re-energized and rebuilt forum, are finding our way a little bit. And certainly our mission statement is rather broad and an emphasis on communication and enhancing communication within the village about these topics, and obviously for the goal of helping address the issues. And, you know, but could well be that, you know, that can take many different types of action, whether it's simply taking good ideas that other people have and trying to duplicate them here, or modify them for ourselves and try to do some, you know, take good ideas, best practices, to literally partnering and with other groups, or getting other groups to partner among themselves that might not otherwise have thought of doing that. A series of forums, different topics, you know, different panels, and frankly, even hopefully, you know, coming up with some good ideas to suggest to the village or other bodies of government here in terms of policies, practices, or procedures that we might want to think about adopting. So it's as broad as the day is long, unfortunately and fortunately, because it's just limited by the creativity of the people involved and what we learn from others and bring back and share with each other, so that we all have that same base of knowledge. Yeah, a little amorphous, I understand, but in a good way, with, you know, and we know what direction we're heading in terms of what the goal is in terms of the issues that we're trying to address in terms of racial equity and inclusion.
Okay, thanks.
You know, the mission of the forum is straight up civil rights. I mean, there's simply no question about that. It's inclusion. That is political by definition. People have fought and died over elements of the mission of this forum. I understand and accept that it's not part of our job to endorse a candidate or a party. I get that. But given what is going on in our country now, I think it's obvious that the mission of the forum is under attack by broad segments of the American population. There's simply no question about that. And I would hope that would add some urgency to our work. I see our work primarily as educational, bringing together different elements of the community to share experiences, to discuss civil rights in Glencoe and the North Shore. Because my 38 years in Glencoe, to me, I'm very, very clear. A lot of people don't have a clue about that, not a clue. And I think to be able to respond to what is going on in our community and in the nation, you have to be educated. And I think we could serve a very, very important function. But I think we need a greater sense of urgency, because we might wake up to a very different country in November, very different. And I think we need to recognize that and long-term move to educate people about what has gone on, what is going on in our community. I think, you know, time for talk is past. We know who we need to talk to. We know we can go out and talk to them. We know we could put together a program with the village, the Glencoe Historical Society, and the library about civil rights in Glencoe and the North Shore. We could do that very, very easily and get some notches on our belt sooner rather than later. Because events, my friends, are going to move very, very, very rapidly. Very rapidly. And to deny that and to say, well, that's a political issue, is to ignore what is going on. It's very, very serious.
Wait, do we know if the library would do a feature like that? Like, you know, kind of a display, a little bit of, in part of the space that talked about some of the history. And Bob, you have talked about that before, and I thought it was fascinating. I guess some of the historical society is going to have some of that as well, but to pull it together in some way for village members to see themselves in that lens, that, as you say, the timing is now. That would not be appropriate, depending on how the election goes come December. That's it's, as you say, it's like now or forever hold your peace, I think.
Well, as far as the library goes, I mean, the libraries are about uncovering facts. I mean, that's what a library is there. It's to discover the world, to open books, to discuss. The library is a perfect partner, obviously, for this forum, as is the Glencoe Historical Society. I mean, the elements are there. I would just like to see more urgency. And, I think what we need to do is clear. That's to educate the community by involving as many elements of the community as possible. In terms of direct political action, I think that obviously is something each of us have to decide to do on our own. Because I accept 100% that you're not going to have the forum endorsing people. But, Jeannie and I work with the Nuclear Democratic Organization. We're precinct captains in Glencoe. But I understand that's not what the forum does. I get that, I accept it. But I just like to see some more urgency.
However, sorry, Bob, I thought you were finished.
No, excuse me. No, please.
No, finish your sentence.
No, I'm finished.
I was going to say, I completely agree that yes, all talk, no action is, really not our goal. Obviously, we are, one of the things I want to talk about is our local businesses, for example, maybe just going in there and talking to them, asking if we can meet with their employees, and understanding some of those employees, they're coming into Glencoe to work, and giving our perspective on what it is like to be an inclusive community. I can personally give an experience of my own, just to say how I felt I was treated. Those are kind of things that open up people's eyes and minds to know, oh, but that was not the intent. Agreed, but this is how it came across, and then give them ideas on some of this behavior and sensitivity around those. I mean, that's just a thought. I understand with organizations it's different, but why can't we just go to our local businesses? Restaurants, shops, and the works, gas stations. Bob is making a face. I have to understand that face. I do not understand that expression.
No, my wife has been trying to figure it out for 42 years. So, don't even go there.
I don't know. Again, I'm new, so, take me as a baby comment maybe, but, some of what I'm thinking about, reading these questions, and some of what I'm thinking about, talking to people that live in Glencoe or have businesses in Glencoe is that I think that people can end up feeling very vulnerable. And if we were to go in and start talking to minority people that live in Glencoe or work in Glencoe and ask them to share their stories in order to help like the broader Glencoe get an understanding of what some of their lived experiences are, I think that it's beneficial to the people that hear the stories, but I think that sometimes it can end up leaving the people that we're talking to feeling raw and vulnerable. And I don't know if there's a way to do this where people have their anonymity if that was a direction that people wanted to go. I think it's hard, even when I read the question, is there equity and justice in your own organization? How do people know that? They know it only through the eyes and hearts of their experience in the organization. And also if they're the owner of the business, or they're the boss, or they're in some kind of position of authority. It might be hard for them to acknowledge or sort of fetter out how to answer that question in a real way, because they may think very much so, but the lived experience of the people that they pay or underneath them might have a very different experience, but the reality is that's their job. And I'm just trying to think about how there could be an opportunity to have difficult conversations where everybody has skin in the game. And I don't know exactly how that would look or feel, but I'm just conscientious, just sort of thinking about how would we get people's stories without leaving them feeling vulnerable or exposed. I'm not really sure how that would.
I can tell
work.
you from experience, Anise, and I understand what you're saying, where you're coming from. I can tell you from my experiences, being a person of color, with all the rejections and the dismissals and the scars that I've had in my life. Does it mean it's any less suffering because I speak about it? Or do I just have to come to terms with it? Or do I want to share with people what it is like? And this is a very key. That's why I ask everyone to educate ourselves, because it's very key to know that a person's experience is their experience, and no other person could just reject it as just something because of sensitivities or any of that. The fact is that the person that experiences knows what it feels like to be treated that way. And those scars will last forever in some cases. And they in fact just get worse as years go by. And sometimes it helps to talk about it in a positive manner. So are we forcing people to come and do that? Obviously not. If Michael and Writers Theaters employees have been treated badly and they are comfortable to come and speak to us directly, we have an open forum, and we have made ourselves available to say, yes, please share your experiences. But if they're not comfortable, we're still here. If they want to share it through Michael, great. If they want to share it through us, or they want to come to one of us directly, we're open to that as well, right? What we're doing is we're making ourselves available. We want to make ourselves available. People need to know these stories. People need to speak about it. And people will speak about it if they're comfortable with it. Nobody's going to force them. However, I feel that me speaking about if I'm treated badly, the first thing I want to do is talk to the owner that runs an organization to let them know that this was my experience. It is my experience, and I want them to know. And then what do you want to do going forward as an action item is that person's decision. However, from my perspective, I need to let them know. And then I could give them ideas and take it from there. And I think there are many people like that. And in especially today's times, I think people are feeling empowered. They're actually feeling empowered to notice that there is something going on and to speak up about it. And we want to encourage that. If they feel empowered, why not speak about it? I mean, we as a forum obviously are not going to take any sides, because we want, again, people to be thinking of this as a safe place. This is a place where there's no judgment, right? Nobody's going to judge you. However, if you share your experience, and in the Chalkers case, if there was something that we can take forward to our village board and see if we can take some action, and do something about it, then I feel like even if we do one thing, we've accomplished a lot.
And by the way,
I think the
village president did do something that was very important. I think the statement that he issued was a week ago was on target and articulate, and I congratulate him for doing that. So I believe he did respond.
He did. He did.
And
And that was the action that happened. And I think as a forum, you know, I think we helped move that along. And I feel really good. I mean, I feel like that's great. We made some progress, you know?
Just to be clear, I was not saying that people should not share their stories. I was just trying to figure out a way where there was space for people to do that and not feel particularly vulnerable if and when that was asked of them. Because I thought that we were talking about going in and going down this list with people and asking them to answer these questions and to share their experiences that they'd had in Glencoe. And what I was just saying was I wasn't sure how exactly that would work. I haven't seen it. I haven't done it, walking into stores or talking with people that work in Glencoe about these experiences in sort of an interview format. I certainly have heard many stories myself. So just to clarify, I just wanted to be clear on what I was saying.
Can I make a quick point? If I can be quick, which is difficult for me. So we have had the opportunity to listen to Dipty's story, and Reverend Gary has had some stories to share with us. Maureen has a son who's Black, who had some stories to share with us. And then we also have spoken to the Chalkers, one of which is Black and had some experiences as well to share with us. And I agree that it's empowering. And I think that it's an important thing that the people who feel like they have lost power and have no power understand that we are willing to listen and give them back the power that has been taken from them. And I think that's really important. Some of the themes that I've heard from the people that have shared with us are that they don't feel comfortable going into shops in Glencoe, that sometimes they feel like they're not wanted there. We've heard that people feel like they may be unjustly stopped by police officers in Glencoe, that and I absolutely believe that they are afraid when they're pulled over by police officers. I've heard it so many times in the past few months. I have no choice but to understand that that is a frightening thing, particularly for a man of color. I understand that there are people who don't feel welcome buying homes in Glencoe or anywhere on the North Shore. I understand that people, I know for a fact that people have been told they can't ride their bikes to a beach in Winnetka by someone else in Winnetka. So I believe all these stories that I've heard, and that hurts me to know that they're true. And so while I understand it's important for our group and for our community members to understand the history of these things happening, that they do in fact happen, that it's unfair, it's unjust, and should not happen in our community, and educating them that it is happening and giving them proof that you may think we don't do that in Glencoe, but we have proof that it happens. And that is important. But I also think that it's important for us to, and not necessarily go into every store, but go to the Chamber of Commerce and say, are your members talking about the fact that people feel uncomfortable going into your stores? And if you're not aware of it, we can tell you they are. And what are you going to do about it? And to engage groups like Interfaith Housing, or now it's changed their name to Open Communities Housing, which deals with the fact that people don't feel comfortable renting or purchasing property on the North Shore because they won't feel welcome. And if we could start to put in place some direct action on how to ensure somehow down the road that people will start to feel comfortable buying a home in Glencoe and sending their children to our schools and shopping in our stores and saying hello to us on the street and walking their dogs, which is how, Reverend Gary ran into trouble and felt unwelcome. If we can start to address the actual systematic injustice, we may be able to start to loosen up people's feelings about what is happening in Glencoe and how we can make changes.
Yep, and Margot, you hit that. I want to say one thing very clearly. Minimizing or underestimating the problem is actually keeping us and from moving forward. And so it's very easy for someone to just minimize it or underestimate it. And I'm not, and I want to clarify, I don't mean to go and talk to every single employee, but it would be good, and maybe Chamber of Commerce is probably the way to go, but it would be good to go to the businesses and say, have you talked to your employees about this? What do they say? What have you heard? This is what we're hearing. Have you heard of any complaints of people coming to your restaurant or shop and giving you a firsthand complaint? I mean, do we have to have a camera every single time and record it to prove it? I think we're way past that, way past that. I mean, it's about time we stop just relying on somebody's cell phone video to make it viral to know that somebody is facing injustice. That's not necessary. That's kind of what I feel like our forum, we have to build that trust. And if we build that trust with our community, we're not saying bring us a camera and show us the proof. We're building the trust either through firsthand or secondhand information. Firsthand is always better, but if somebody's uncomfortable telling us firsthand and they want to talk to the owner of their association who wants to bring it to the bureau, or what do you call it? Not the Better Business Bureau, I'm thinking of the Chamber of Commerce, yes, the Chamber of Commerce, then that's fine. That's how you talk to the forum. But either way, we're not going to question that the information is not right. I think we're way past that. I'm definitely never going to ask.
Well, and I'm hearing it from all over, not just Glencoe. I mean, I don't think we need to wonder if there is systematic inequities. I'm done wondering. I know it's a fact, I know it's true, and I know it's happening in my hometown. And so with that information, and again, please continue to tell your stories because it empowers you to tell your stories. But let's do something with the information that I don't need any more proof that it's true. I wholeheartedly, and I hope that most of us do understand that this isn't, we're not wondering if people feel that they're not treated properly. At least I'm not. I believe they are being treated improperly, and I believe they feel like they're uncomfortable, and I don't want people to be uncomfortable when there's no reason for them to be uncomfortable. They're as welcome here as anybody.
Not seeing the problem is the biggest problem. And I think, yes, we should take that initiative to educate that there is a problem.
Right. So can I, this is a little bit, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I know it's getting late. So the Volunteer Center, which is an organization I'm part of, has held an annual Martin Luther King Day of Service for 20-something years. And the Volunteer Center is based in Winnetka, although we were just thrown out of the school that we used as an office because they're close to us. Many of our board members and former presidents and founders are former Glencoe and current Glencoe residents. And this year, we're not going to be able to have a live event on Martin Luther King Day, which is in January, somewhere around the 20th. And there's some buzz going around other organizations like ours that this would be a good day for us to put together a joint effort to educate people, to bring in panels, to have speakers, to give people tips, to give people ideas, to promote, you know, any potential policy changes that need to be made, to unite people. And I think time-wise, it kind of is good for us because it's only September now. So by January, we could really have some, you know, meat to share with people. I just thought that I would bring that up because I know our agenda talks about timelines and events and stuff, but I think that would be a good opportunity. All the local faith-based organizations also do a joint service on Martin Luther King Day. And so it would be a good sort of target date, I think, to really come out strong.
Well, let's put that as an action item to start working on, to see, start gathering ideas and see how we can put that in action. I think that's January's doable.
Yeah.
However, before that, also, if we have other people that we want to invite,
Oh,
I think it's a great opportunity. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Let's have people come and speak and give us, whether it's their ideas or experience, and then there's always an action that comes out of it. I think, like, every time somebody speaks, there's an action that comes out of it. I'm all for it. Bob's already gotten us rolling on that wheel. We just have to add many wheels to it and make it a big truck now.
Let's do it.
So maybe we start with putting ideas of people that we have in mind that we would like to invite and what we want them to come here for. So, a couple of points, what we want to ask them to speak about on our forum meetings, and let's send that to Sharon. And then, Sharon can be the master keeper of that list. And then we could start scheduling based on reaching out and seeing who's available and then seeing if they can come to our forum meetings. How about that? I see 2 thumbs.
They're both mine? Oh, okay.
So that's great. I feel like we accomplished a lot today. I feel like it's feeling like a meeting. Do you guys agree? I don't know. I'm not seeing many nods. So do we have anything else on our agenda that I'm missing? Anybody wants to bring up anything else on the forum?
So I don't know if you do this, so do you kind of recap the action things? So people should be sending, are we still working on that list of questions, sending Sharon any edits? Yes. She'll send us the list of things. Now you're saying speaker ideas as well to her.
We rely on Sharon to keep a tab of all of those things that we've talked about, and then she perfectly does it so much better. So we really don't recap much.
There's also a technical reason. If each of us shares our thoughts and ideas about these things through Sharon, then there's no breach of the Open Meetings Act. We can't just hit reply to all the emails and things.
Right.
That's a technical no-no.
Yep.
Yep.
For the new members.
Yes, I remember.
Believe me, I'm still learning that act, the Open Meetings Act. Although I did take the test and cleared it and did all the stuff I needed to do online. But I don't know if taking the test and really learning something right away is the same thing. So
just have to get used to it.
Yeah. So that's great. So Sharon, should we open it up to our community, if there are anything that they want to speak about with regards to the agenda?
Any public comments?
Any public comments? Yeah.
I see we have a couple of folks from the public who are logged in. Hello, welcome. If you have a question or comment, feel free to hit the raise hand button. If you don't, that's all right too. And in the meantime, while we're giving folks an opportunity to decide that, I did verify that we did not get any public comments submitted in advance of the meeting. And I see a hand raised from Michael Halberstam. Michael, I'm going to unmute you.
Oh, hello, Michael. We see your photo.
I think you can unmute yourself, Michael. If not, I will. There
Thank
you
you.
go.
Done it. Thought I had. Thank you. I just want to compliment you on today's conversation, and also I really to praise your leadership, Dipti, and also to amplify, Margot, your comments. I thought they were extraordinarily on point. I don't think you need any more evidence to prove that there's an issue here. I think you have two very, very apparent challenges. One, the issue with people feeling comfortable in businesses, and the second issue, discomfort with interactions with public safety. So I feel like addressing those two issues would be an excellent agenda item for this group. And also, Bob, I just really want to compliment you on your sensitivity around the conversations today, and also the urgency of this situation. And also, I want to compliment you on the work that you did with the Chalkers at the last meeting. I thought the way you navigated the conversation was extraordinary. And I really, I felt like those young folk went away feeling heard. My only question would be, Sharon, I think maybe you didn't want the forum to reach out to other governmental entities. And I just wonder if there is power in the North Shore coming together as a unit. We have heard from members that people are being stopped all the way up the North Shore. So if Glencoe manages to tackle this issue in isolation, it doesn't matter if we've got a wall of inaction around us. My artists can get away with just coming in through Glencoe, often because they will just take the highway, so that all they have to do is travel down Dundee to get to the theater. But while they're in Glencoe, they do like to use the other North Shore businesses, and almost, I would say to a person, as I'm interviewing them right now, they talk about feeling uncomfortable in North Shore businesses in general. So I think some kind of unified engagement might give you more weight if you start to come out and look at how you navigate your engagement with your local public safety forces and police forces, and also work on some anti-racism training for local businesses. And I think just the last thing I'll say is, I think if you're going to start engaging with local businesses, you probably want to be very careful about how you do that, and maybe even hire a professional consultant to come in and work on that with you, because race can be very, very triggering for people, white people. And I think we sometimes have a tendency to get very fragile when these issues are brought to our attention, and sometimes we react very, very poorly. And in ways that I think if we given a little breath, or if we had somebody who knew how to navigate our fragility, we might show ourselves in a better light. That is something certainly that I personally work on all the time, because it can be very difficult when somebody comes up and makes an accusation that I know is true, that I know I am responsible for. And my immediate response as a human being is probably going to be to bluster a little bit before I settle into the reality that I have screwed up and that I need to do better. I've gotten a lot better at that over the years, but I'm still not over the finish line. I suppose it's a lifetime of work. So I might encourage that the forum think about finding some money to engage a professional anti-racist trainer to come in and navigate some of these issues. And I assume that there are organizations that actually deal with civic racism. You know, we have an issue on the North Shore. If you look at the demographics, I mean, our city is incredibly segregated, and that manifests itself in a significant fiscal difference between marginalized communities and privileged communities. And I think the more we can come together as a community and bring these issues around to our audience, the more likely we are to start tackling it. And yes, it's a lifetime of work. I don't think we're going to fix this in the next 6 weeks. I think this is going to be years and years. We've got about 700 years of systemic racism to undo. It's not going to go away in 4 weeks. But I think as a block, if the North Shore came out and, for instance, started a huge marketing campaign and worked on educating both its citizens, its businesses, and its police forces, we actually could make a huge and significant difference in a few years. Thank you. That's my comment.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that we could use writers as a venue for making presentations on a regular basis? I think it would be a marvelous venue. I think it would be good for everyone concerned. I think it would be a draw to explore all these issues that we've been discussing for the past hour and a half and for years now. Is that a possibility?
Yes, I will take that back to my group. Obviously, I'm just one person in the group. It certainly would have my approval, and we have certainly talked about that. Obviously, we're hampered right now by the plague. And so we can't do it until it's safe to gather again. But and that is one of the challenges I think we're all facing right now, to try and navigate a systemic breakdown at the same time that we're also trying to navigate a plague. So my hope is that when we are able to come back together again, we will be able to open the doors and utilize our spaces as opportunities for dialogue. We are, one of our agreements with Glencoe when we built the building was to be a community resource. This is a way that we can be a very important community resource that will be good both for the theater and for the community, and for the North Shore in general.
Yeah, I mean, theater is all about addressing the issues that are the mission of the forum.
Correct.
About opening eyes.
Yeah, and I do think it's important, Bob, to amplify again one of your comments that, yes, there is a perception that some of these issues are political, but I also just want to say as a gay man, that when people used to come to me and tell me that my rights were a political issue, I found that personally very, very difficult to navigate. People's rights are not political. This is a matter of human rights. This should not be a Democratic or Republican, a Green or a libertarian concept. This is just simply a humanist concept. And as long as we're all engaging in the course of humanity, I think helping somebody feel dignified, accepted, and not marginalized because of their melanin count seems to me to be a fairly obvious and non-political motion. And I think you were addressing that earlier, and I just want to applaud you for saying so.
I want to clarify for Sharon. I don't think she said that working with these organizations in a political sense. What I understand, I feel like we are not an independent entity, and we are attached to the village of Glencoe, which makes us a village entity. And so anything that we do, moving forward, would be considered as an action that a village takes.
I understand. I think maybe the recommendation might be for the committee then to reach out to the Board of Trustees and suggest that they start to create a unity along the North Shore. Because again, I will come back to what Margot said and amplify that this is not going to happen simply in Glencoe.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, this is Amy. Michael, I just would also second your idea. I'm glad you raised it about the professional possibly steering the conversation, because I too have found that the reaction from people, it's delicate, obviously. And if we want to make progress, sometimes finding the right way to broach the topic to get the buy-in that we're looking for could be very important. So I think we should keep kind of teasing that down the road along with the kinds of things we want to ask them. So thank you for raising that as well.
You're welcome. I think you just have to look on the internet, the social media feeds, to see these people getting hysterical about wearing masks, for instance, to understand that there are deeper personal issues that can be triggered when somebody has a difficult question asked to them. And if they're in a bad place at the time, they can just become ugly, even if that's not their intention. And as I think somebody on the call said earlier, I think actually it was you, Dipti. It doesn't really matter what your intention is. It's about the impact of your words or your actions that's what counts. One of the conversations I've had with an anti-racist training group was exactly that we have to take accountability for the impact of our actions. And I would be nervous about I wouldn't want to do it. I've had quite a lot of anti-racism training, and I would not want to go in and start having a conversation with somebody about race without a professional intermediary. It's not that I'm insulting the quality of the work. This is a really very, very impressive working group in terms of the level of conversation that you're all bringing to the table. And I applaud you for these difficult conversations. I think it's protective of you and protective of the people involved. And also, as Anise was talking about, I think this was one of the first issues that was brought up at Writers when I started talking to folks. Not everybody is comfortable talking about race because they're uncomfortable. If they want to complain about their employer, they're uncomfortable about their job longevity. And so providing a safe environment for them to do that is something that a civic anti-racist trainer would probably have a mechanism to be able to give them the freedom to be able to talk without feeling like they're going to have a job reprisal. Even though I can tell all of my employees and all of my artists until I'm blue in the face that I want to support them and that I want to be there for them, and they still want to come and tell me when they're uncomfortable sometimes because they're afraid I won't hire them again. And that's just the reality of the power dynamic, and something that I've had to come to terms with as a leader in terms of evaluating my own actions, in terms of how I shut people down, or if I'm saying or doing something inappropriate.
And we do have current times which are different from even 6 months ago. And I feel like sensitivity, the people that are facing this are also noticing it more and actually are thinking, like, I think about it a lot more when I come back, and I think, why did this happen to me? And why should I let it go? And why should it happen to me? Whereas in the past, I might have just let it go and said, you know what? I'm just never going to go there again. I just don't want to.
Dipti, with the greatest of respect, you have a degree of privilege that comes from your standing in the community and from your financial standing that, say, the folks at DJs do not necessarily have.
I agree. I call myself white because I have a white husband.
Yeah, yes. I was in DJs a few weeks ago, and I watched a man just tearing into one of the grocery baggers for no very good reason. And it was clearly that something was going on in his own life. And he turned around and picked on the most powerless person he could find and started screaming at them. And these folks, I think, have a very hard time and don't get treated well necessarily by the community. And so to witness that, it was a very ugly moment. I was half tempted to take out my phone and start taping it, but I didn't think that would ultimately do any of us any good in that scenario, though I think maybe I would do it again. But I also want to amplify, Dipti, something that you just said, and that is that I am finding an encouraging number of artists who would be willing to come out and talk personally and attach their names to their statements, precisely because they are energized and empowered by the moment. Please forgive me, but I have to run because I have to now go do an event for Writers Theater. But I do want to leave on a positive note and say that I am impressed with the depth and complexity of conversations that you're having, the breadth of your understanding, and your bravery. I think this is brave work, and I applaud you and uphold you, and I look forward to partnering with you in any way possible that the theater can help to hold the mirror as 'twere up to nature, as Hamlet says via Shakespeare. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. That was really nice. That was really good feedback, I think. Is there any other business that a member of the forum would like to raise?
Just a follow-up, given one of the things that one of Michael's themes is just sort of a reminder to us all and a note to the new folks, if you don't already know, and I'm sure Sharon's getting that information out to you, that this group will be meeting with the Board of Trustees of the Village, and together, is that correct, Sharon, having a training session on these kinds of issues with, someone that has a very good reputation for helping groups such as ours in learning more about this and how we should be behaving and speaking and listening and what we should be doing about it. So
what's the date of that? Is it October 10th?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it'll be October 10th. It'll be the training.
Saturday morning.
Yep. That's a great, thank you, great reminder, Gary. For our newer members, I'll get you that information so that you've got it on your calendars. And I wanted to also some of the feedback that or some of the comments that Michael shared with the group remind me of a couple things that are helpful perhaps to touch on kind of more administratively. As Dipti had said, the forum is an advisory body to the village board. So the forum is part of the village of Glencoe proper as an entity. And so the suggestion that if we want to work with other communities, with other government organizations, we just take, we spend some time thinking about the way in which to approach that rather than individual members of the forum going to, say, a trustee from another community or a board member from another community, just so that we're working cohesively as the village. But to that end, as an advisory body to the village board, going back to one of the comments that Amy made earlier as a possible outgrowth of feedback, certainly it is within this group's purview to share feedback with the village board. And Gary, I don't want to put you on the spot at all, but that's part of the dialogue that happens between advisory bodies and the village board. And so to the extent that we start to aggregate feedback and we want to share that, we can talk about the processes by which we can do that, so that we can share that feedback. If we have ideas for the community as a whole, that we can share those as well. So thank you for indulging me in my my brief administrative comments.
And if I might add one other brief note, again, just so people are aware of process with the village board. A part of every regular village board meeting, and I invite you all to attend, they're absolutely as interesting as you might expect in many respects, but there are lots of interesting things going on in the village right now. So they're more interesting than they might be. But one thing we do at every meeting is each of the various and sundry advisory boards, et cetera, there's a report, a brief one, from the person that's charged with that. In my case, I, for example, would have a few minutes to be able to speak about what our meeting, or usually two meetings, have been about, what we're doing, where we're going, et cetera. And, so that the other trustees and Larry, to the extent he is not currently up to date, is up to date on the important salient points. Just so the other members know, I think if we don't have it on the boards, I think we do have a meeting with Larry and Dipti and myself and Sharon, again, just to make sure that there really is full communication about, from this advisory board back up to the board of trustees, and we'll get Larry's thoughts about some of the stuff that has been going on, and then that'll come back to this board, or this forum. So it is very much a two-way street, and I want to assure people that there really is communication. And as Sharon said, we are an advisory board, so they need to know what we're talking about.
And thank you, Gary, because you're really doing a fine job with advocating for the forum. I know on several occasions you have taken our thoughts and our what we're trying to accomplish in specifics to your board meeting, so that the other members are aware. So I think that's really good, because then other members of other boards in our community are hearing what we're trying to do. We still do battle with that idea of having more community people be involved with our board. And I want to go back to that coffee on Saturday morning or something, I don't know. It's frustrating, because the things we talk about are very important, and I want more people to hear this. So having said that, are we good for today? It's a really long meeting. Sharon, when can we have our next meeting?
The cadence that we've been on is the first and the third Wednesday of the month. So the next one would be the 7th. But I think perhaps in the interest of time, and since we've had a few people unable to attend, I can send an email to the group to ask you for your feedback as to whether that cadence is still working, if the time is workable for your schedules, or if there are other times of day that are better for you. so that we can plan accordingly. So look for an email from me tomorrow with a few takeaways from today's meeting. Some reminders that if you have additional comments on some of the questions or ideas about speakers, to send them my way, and I'm happy to aggregate that. And then also just to share your thoughts on meeting frequency and if this day and time is working well for you.
And Sharon, just in particular, because we have new folks and it might be a good time to just kind of review, if I could trouble you to attach to that email some of the written pieces that have been circulated at this forum, whether it's the Excel spreadsheet with the groups and people involved, the potential cover letter if you wanted to mail something, may as well put the questions on there again. And I'm trying to remember what else, if anything, that we've had.
Our goals that we identified.
Yeah, the mission statement, exactly. Sort of like all in one place. Here it is. Quick primer, quick reminder to the rest of us, you know, and so that we'll all be closer on the same page in terms of, you know, bringing people up to speed. And if anybody wants to reach out to anybody else on the forum and just chat one-on-one, I'm certainly available. I know Dipti is always available to me when I impose upon her, but I don't want her to be the only one. And so I'll volunteer as well. And just again, to ask questions and come up to speed, so to speak, for any of the new members.
Maybe copies of our minutes from the meetings that we've had.
Great idea.
So they know what we.
I will, yep, we can do that.
Thanks.
Well, they're online, so you have the links.
They are, yeah. I'll send a link so that way I don't block your email anymore with attachments.
And I mean, to Amy and Anise, I just want to say, you know, feel free to reach out to every single one of us. I mean, everyone is in this together with the same passion. We're all doing this as volunteers, so it must mean a lot to everyone. So I think, you know, it's okay to talk one-on-one and get to know each other. So just, you know, I always keep myself open, and I'm actually volunteering all the other forum members too. You can reach out to them.
Thank you.
Do we have a list of people's phone numbers, or how do you want us reaching out to one another?
I can send a contact list. I'll include a reminder, of course, that as Gary had mentioned, the Illinois Open Meetings Act is quite strict on dialogue among members of a public body. The forum is considered a public body. So the long and the short of it is 2 members of the forum can have a dialogue, whether that's by phone, in person, email, text message, if you're discussing forum business, and that is not in violation of the Open Meetings Act. However, if there was a 3rd member of the forum engaged in that, that would be. So individual dialogues are always strongly encouraged. If you ever have a question about it, and Anise will, our office will send you some information on how to participate in online training for the Open Meetings Act after you're formally appointed. But if you ever have a question about it, any member of the forum for that matter, feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to help navigate some of those questions or issues as they may come up.
Right.
And then I had one more really quick question. I'm so sorry, but since the training is on the 10th and you were talking about maybe having a meeting that week or the week after, we were going to negotiate sort of like the cadence of things, just maybe to consider whether we wanted to meet to process after the training or before the training, or if I'm like a processing person, but that was just my thought, but I don't know how you guys do stuff.
Well, I see that we would have one more in a couple of weeks. It's around the week of the 28th. And I think it would be really good to touch base again on that week, because the training is not until the 10th, which is the week after that, the weekend after that. So my personal recommendation would be that we do meet before, as it would be time for us to meet in a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
And then after the training would be the week that it would be time for us to meet again.
I think we're maybe 1 week off on the calendar, Dipti. Our next regularly scheduled date would be October 7th. We do the 1st and the 3rd.
Oh, not the 30th?
Yeah, September is a 5 Wednesday month. So we'll have a little bit more of a break between meetings. But nevertheless, we'll still have one just before the training, and then following that same cadence of the 1st and the 3rd, we would have a meeting on October 21st, assuming we stick with Wednesdays. So I think we would be able to satisfy that, though, to have some time before and after.
But it's not set in stone, right, Sharon? So suppose we give our members the option of the week of the 27th and the week of the 4th, or is that asking for too much?
The week of September 28th?
Yeah.
I will be out of the office that week.
Yeah, okay, well then never mind. Forget I said that.
I'm trying to plan a get out of the office, and I've sort of locked in those dates around my plans.
Yeah, we certainly can change dates. I would suggest, to the extent that we can, it may be helpful to keep those 1st and the 3rd dates, unless the consensus of the group is that you'd like to work out a different cadence, so that way.
Well, I just would like to accommodate like Marty in one of the meetings. So if we're going to do, say, the first in the month, the first part of the meeting in the month, we do first part of the month meeting, we do like a 5 o'clock, and then maybe we try to accommodate Marty with his timing, because he really cannot make 5 to 7, and see if the second part of the month we do that.
Amy, it looks like you're waving goodbye.
Yeah, right, but I'm flexible, so go with what works for everybody else.
All right, thank you.
Bye, Amy.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Amy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Why don't we work that out so that we've got feedback from the group? I think your point is a good one, Dipti, and perhaps if we can get feedback from the group, we can chat through that a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be
that everyone says, oh, this day and time is perfect, and then it just kind of
no, it's not. But I mean, if we can be a little bit flexible, where at least in one of the meetings of the month we can get our participation higher, at least for someone like Marty, who has specifically expressed that this time just doesn't work for him, which means he's just not going to be able to attend any of these meetings, right? And I mean, I feel like, let's see if we could be a little flexible for at least one of the meetings. So
Yep. Well, I think feedback from the group will be helpful on timing, so I will send that out tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Oh, that was a good meeting. Are we ready to adjourn?
I think so.
I move for that.
Okay.
All right.
All right, then the meeting, do you want to have a roll call still? We're only a few of us left.
Everyone has expressed support for adjourning, so.
Aye.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much.
And goodbye. Have a great evening, everybody.
Have a great evening. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.